All right, so let's jump into ICT application configuration. Getting ready for an interview? Perfect. We're going to make sure you're prepped. We've got a whole bunch of RoleCatcher guides for you, career, interview, even their question repository. Think of this deep dive as like your own little cheat sheet to help you land that job.
Yeah, it's a really good idea to prepare for this. This field is blowing up right now. Companies are relying so much on specialized software, someone who can configure it exactly how they need it. That's super valuable.
Okay, so let's break down exactly what an ICT application configurator does. Imagine taking software like off the rack and tailoring it perfectly for a company, setting up all the rules, user roles, even building custom modules.
The fascinating thing is it's not just about technical skills. You need to understand the business side too. What are they trying to achieve? How does the software fit into their big picture? And how can you make it actually work for them?
Gotcha. So it's like being a tech expert, but also a bit of a business consultant. Now, RoleCatcher has over 120,000 interview questions, which could be kind of overwhelming. But don't worry. We've picked out a few that are super relevant for you. Let's start with a classic. Can you describe your experience with configuring ICT applications?
This one's all about showcasing your experience in the right way. Don't just list off every system you've worked with. Think about the types of systems and highlight how complex those past projects were.
So instead of saying, I've worked with SAP,
hmm
I might say something like, I configured a complex SAP system for a global company, and I even integrated it with their CRM, which, by the way, is their customer relationship management platform. Not everyone knows those acronyms.
Exactly. That shows you can handle complicated setups and that you understand how different systems work together. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI is really helpful. It looks at the specific job description and compares your CV to it, so you know exactly which skills to focus on in your answer.
That's like having a personalized coach right in your pocket. Okay, next question. How do you prioritize your tasks when configuring ICT applications? Sounds like they want someone who's organized, someone who can juggle a lot of things at once.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They want to know you can handle deadlines and changing priorities. If you use a specific method, like Agile, definitely mention that. But don't just name drop it. Give a real example of how you've actually used it.
For example, I could say, I use Agile principles to break down big configuration projects into smaller, manageable sprints. This helps me stay on track and adapt to changes quickly. I prioritize tasks based on their overall impact.
Perfect. You've shown you understand Agile. And even better, how you actually apply it in real life. Interviewers love that. Real-world examples that really paint a clear picture.
All right, question number 3. Can you describe your experience with testing ICT applications? Now, testing's got to be super important in this role, right? Making sure everything actually works the way it's supposed to before it goes live.
It's critical. You're the last line of defense before the software is rolled out to the whole company. You need to be comfortable with all sorts of testing methods: unit testing, integration testing, user acceptance testing, and be ready to explain why each one matters.
And if you can mention specific testing tools that you're familiar with, even better, right? I bet RoleCatcher's Knowledge Guide would have a list of those, yeah.
You bet. It's a great resource for brushing up on your knowledge, making sure you're using the right terminology, showing that you're up to date with the latest tools and technologies. That can really impress an interviewer.
Okay, on to a question that's less about tech and more about people skills. Can you describe a time you had to work with cross-functional teams?
This is your chance to tell a story. Pick a situation where you had to work with people from different departments, maybe developers, project managers, even end users. What were the challenges, and how did you overcome them?
They're really trying to figure out your communication and collaboration skills, right? Can you explain complex technical details to non-technical people? Can you work with different perspectives and find solutions that work for everyone?
Exactly. And don't forget to highlight the positive outcome of all that collaboration. Did you deliver the project on time and within budget? Did you improve a process or develop a new solution?
Okay, last question for this round, and it's a big one. Can you explain your understanding of data security and privacy in ICT applications? In this day and age, it feels like that's non-negotiable.
You're absolutely right. Data breaches are a constant threat. Companies need to know that you take data security super seriously. This is where you can mention any experience you have with compliance standards, like GDPR or HIPAA, or specific security protocols you've implemented.
So I might talk about setting up user access controls, implementing data encryption methods, or even my approach to regular security audits.
Exactly. The more specific you can be, the better. Now, before we jump into the next set of questions, let's take a quick detour and talk about your career path.
Sounds good. RoleCatcher's Career Guide has a ton of insights on this.
Mhm.
So let's see what it says about where an ICT application configurator can go from here.
The good news is ICT application configuration is in high demand, and the career paths are pretty exciting too. You could move into project management, software development, even specialize as a consultant.
Consultant. That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Working on all sorts of different projects, helping companies figure out those really complex software challenges.
Exactly. But no matter which path you choose, continuous learning is key. Technology is always changing so fast, got to stay ahead of the curve.
So that means always learning new technologies, getting those certifications. RoleCatcher lists a few that can really boost your credibility, right?
Absolutely. Things like Microsoft Certified Azure Developer Associate, Oracle Certified Associate, AWS Certified Developer. There's even the CISSP, Certified Information Systems Security Professional. That one's huge for anyone working with sensitive data.
Wow, okay. I'm writing these down. All right, let's get back to those interview questions. What else should I be ready for?
Let's see. How about this one? Can you explain your understanding of the ITIL framework? It's a common one, especially for roles involving IT service management.
ITIL. It rings a bell. But could you remind me what that is again?
Sure. ITIL stands for Information Technology Infrastructure Library. It's all about best practices for managing IT services, making sure things run smoothly, issues get fixed quickly, and that users are happy.
So it's not just about configuring the software, but the whole process of how it's used and managed.
Exactly. You don't need to be an ITIL expert for the interview, but you should understand the basic concepts. Things like incident management, change management, problem management.
So if I worked somewhere that used ITIL, I could say something like, in my previous role, we used the ITIL framework to manage our service desk operations. I handled incidents, escalated problems, and implemented changes according to ITIL guidelines.
Perfect. You've shown you understand ITIL and how it's actually used in the real world. All right, ready for a question about deployment? Can you describe your experience with deploying ICT applications?
Okay, this sounds like where things get really hands-on. Taking a configured application and actually making it live.
You got it. Talk about the different deployment methods you've used, any tools you're familiar with, and how you handled challenges like data migration, user training, and post-deployment support.
And it's okay to get technical here, right? I can mention specific technologies or cloud platforms I've worked with, like Azure, AWS, or even on-premises servers.
Absolutely. The more details you can give, the better. It shows how much experience you really have. Now, let's switch gears a bit. Have you heard much about DevOps?
DevOps. Yeah, it's a buzzword I keep hearing, but I'm not totally sure how it relates to an ICT application configurator.
It's a really important concept. DevOps is all about breaking down those walls between development and operations teams. It's about collaboration, automation, and continuous delivery.
So how does that apply to my role? Does it mean I need to be involved in the whole software development process?
Exactly. You're not just configuring the application on its own. You're working with developers to make sure it can be deployed and managed smoothly. You might mention your experience with version control systems, code reviews, or even writing automated scripts for deployment or testing.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. Understanding DevOps can really make a configurator more valuable to a company. I could say something like, by using DevOps principles, I can help make the software delivery process smoother, reduce errors, and make sure configurations are aligned with the latest development practices.
That's a great way to connect it back to what the company wants to achieve. Now, remember that teamwork question we talked about earlier? Here's a similar one that focuses on delivering an application. Can you describe a time when you had to work with different teams to deliver an ICT application?
Okay, so another chance to highlight those collaboration skills. But this time, I need to focus on a specific project where I worked with different teams to get an application up and running.
Right. Maybe you worked with developers to build a custom module, or security people to implement data encryption, or even marketing to train users on the new system. It's all about showing you can bring people together to achieve a common goal.
Got it. And I remember the interviewer was also looking for that positive outcome. What did you achieve as a team? Now, I noticed something interesting. This next question is one we already talked about. Can you explain your understanding of data security and privacy in ICT applications?
You're right, we did talk about data security, but think of this as a bonus round, another chance to really shine in this important area.
So how do I take my answer to the next level?
Think deeper. Mention specific regulations like GDPR or HIPAA, any certifications you have, or even your own commitment to handling data ethically.
So I could say, I believe data security and privacy are absolutely essential in any ICT application. I stay updated on the latest security threats and best practices, and I always make sure configurations protect sensitive information while still being easy to use.
Perfect. You've shown you're not just a configurator, but someone who's responsible and ethical. Now, before we wrap things up, let's circle back to RoleCatcher's AI. We've talked about it throughout this whole thing. But how exactly can it help someone really nail their interview?
That's a great question. It sounds like it can do so much more than just give those generic interview tips.
It's like having your own personal interview coach. It analyzes the job description, scores your CV, and even helps you tailor your answers to what they're looking for. It can point out any skills gaps you might have, suggest relevant experiences to highlight, and even give you tips on how to structure your answers.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like a secret weapon for interview prep. And you mentioned it's available with a free RoleCatcher account.
That's right. No reason not to give it a shot.
Definitely signing up after this. So we've covered a ton today. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up this deep dive?
You know, after all these questions and advice and everything, the thing that really makes someone stand out in an interview is their unique value. Oh, I like that. What do you bring to the table that isn't even on the job description? That's how you really make an impression.
Exactly. Maybe you're super passionate about open source software and you work on cool projects in your free time. Or maybe you're really good at explaining complicated tech stuff to people who aren't techie, making tech accessible for everyone.
Those are great examples. It's about showing you're not just another person, but someone who brings something special to the team. And RoleCatcher can even help with that, right? I remember seeing tools for showing off your skills, like building a portfolio or connecting with potential employers.
Yep, it's all there in RoleCatcher. So you've got the knowledge, the questions, the career advice, and even RoleCatcher's AI to help you out. You're more than prepared for this interview.
It feels like we've squeezed a whole masterclass into this deep dive. I'm feeling way more confident about my prep now.
That's what we want to hear. Remember, preparation is key. But don't forget to relax, be yourself. Let your passion for ICT application configuration shine through. Great advice. To everyone listening, good luck out there. You got this.